We are delighted to have with us our keynote speaker for the evening, Dr. Rishikesha Krishnan, Director of IIM Bangalore, Trustee FFE India Trust, and Charan Chair Professor in Innovation and Leadership. Professor Rishi's main areas of interest are strategy and innovation. He has been listed in the Thinkers 50 India list of most influential thinkers in management from India since 2013. He has written 2 books, one of which has won the Best Book Award from the Indian State for Training and Development. His case studies are part of the collections of Harvard Business School, IIM Bangalore, and IIM Indore. In 2017-18, he was a member of the committee set up by the Government of India under the chairmanship of Justice B.N. Sri Krishna to prepare a national framework for data protection. He co-founded one startup and was the CEO of another. He has been a member of several corporate boards. He was the mentor director of IIM Sambalpur and also completed a 5-year term as director of IIM Indore in December 2018. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rishikesha Krishnan. Over to you, Rishi, and thank you for being with us this evening.
Hi, thanks a lot, Prarthana. It's good to be part of this event. First of all, I'd like to say hello to all our scholars all over India. I was just watching as your names flashed by in the chat window, and it was good to see the number of different institutions you all come from, the number of places you represent. So it's really good to see, the number of different areas in which all of you are working. So congratulations and best wishes to all of you. And let me, like Prabhu did, let me congratulate all of you for your success and wish you all the best in all your future endeavors. So I thought I'll spend a little time today just talking to you about a few things that I thought would be of some interest. So I hope you will find some of this useful. Essentially, what I'm going to talk about is some general comments about how you can plan your career for both growth and leadership, given that you're all studying in really good institutions in India. So I'm going to just give you a set of different ideas, and I hope that many of you will be able to work on some of these ideas. So I think one thing we all know is at a very broad level, India is expected to be one of the growth engines of the world economy. In recent years, it's been one of the fastest growing large economies. And most predictions suggest that it will be the 3rd largest economy by 2040, even if not sooner. Some of you might have been following that India became the 5th largest economy, overtaking the UK very recently. But if this growth continues, we will become one of the largest economies in the world, not too far away. So that's the good part of the story. But at the same time, we all know that we also have significant challenges. A lot of the wealth and income that's created is not very uniformly distributed. We know that India is a land of huge contrasts. On the one hand, if you look at this picture from Mumbai, you can see all the skyscrapers, but at the same time, you can also see all the other buildings which are sort of dwarfed by the huge skyscrapers there. So in a way, this is kind of symbolic of India's inequality problem. And we also know that in recent years, we've seen much sharper inequality. For example, in the latest figures which are available, the top 1% of India's population account for about 21.7% of income, whereas the top 10% account for 56% of the income. It's even worse when you look at wealth, where the top 1% account for 42% of the wealth, the top 10% for 74% of the wealth. And we also know that poverty is also quite non-uniformly distributed across India. So we do have challenges, of course, but as a collective, we hope we will be able to address these challenges. And one of the things I thought I will share with you this evening is also the importance of reading books. I'm sure many of you spend a lot of time reading your textbooks and all the scholastic material you have for your academic programs. But it's also important as leaders of tomorrow that you develop a perspective, that you understand the context in which we live, that you understand some of the challenges before us. So the first book I would like to recommend is this book called The Struggle and the Promise, which is about the Indian economy and industry and so on, written by a very successful industrialist, Naushad Forbes, who is also a prominent industrialist. So he says that, points out that there's a clear promise that our diverse culture can meet the needs of everyone. Our youngsters, like all of you, are thirsty for education and achievement. And we have a strong private sector which can be the engine of growth. But there's also a challenge. The challenge is we need to create a business-friendly environment. We often lag behind in education, public health, quality of jobs, etc. Our government sometimes controls things that it should not be controlling, and and neglects others where perhaps it needs to intervene more. So what Naushad's book talks about is how can the government, citizens, and firms turn our struggle into promise and enable India to lead? How can we fix things by learning from best practices elsewhere? How can we ensure openness, inclusivity, and innovation? How can independent institutions make up for the fact that we often have low state capacity? And how can our culture deliver leadership? So these are some of the interesting questions which Naushad Forbes' book addresses. And I would urge you, when you have time, to pick up books like these and to understand what important figures like Naushad Forbes have to share with us on questions like this. Which leads me to the second book idea I want to share with you today. Now, given this context, one thing is to talk about policy and the role of government and how society needs to change. But the other and sometimes more important question is, what do we need to do as individuals? So here I would like to recommend a book written by a veteran industry leader, Ravi Venkatesan. He was the head of Microsoft in India, and he's been a very, very successful business leader. And he has written a book called What the Heck Do I Do with My Life? And essentially, he's talking about what kind of skills you need to develop. How do you prepare yourself for jobs that perhaps don't even exist yet? How do you create a change agenda for yourself? And this, again, is a book I would recommend that you all take a serious look at. There is also a lot of video material available on YouTube, and you could, of course, refer to that if you don't have the time to read, but I would still strongly encourage you to read this book. In the context of skills, I would also like to urge all of you to think about what are the kind of skills you need to develop in addition to whatever you're studying in your respective courses. There are organizations like the World Economic Forum which track what skills are becoming important. And you can see here that things like complex problem solving, critical thinking, judgment and decision making, these are all some of the skills which are becoming increasingly important. So you might like to keep track of these skills and see how best you can develop these. Those of you who are going through the mentorship program, you might like to also consult your mentors on what are the different ways in which you can develop some of these new skills which are important in the future. What's also interesting is how the job landscape is changing. The emerging jobs are often in data analysis, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. Of course, in old favorites like sales and marketing, then big data, digital transformation, etc. And of course, there are a lot of declining jobs. Fortunately, all of you are engineers or going to be engineers, or you will be doctors, or you're studying law or pharmacy. So if you look at the jobs which are declining, fortunately, none of them fall in the categories in which you folks will be studying. But it's important to see the kind of emerging jobs and to prepare yourself accordingly for these jobs. So, when you look at all these challenges, you must be wondering, where do we get confidence from? How do we build the confidence to address all these new challenges which are emerging in terms of new jobs, new skills, all the new requirements? Well, one thing we can do, of course, is to look back at how, India contributed so enormously to the knowledge the world had in the past. Here, I might recommend my third book idea, which is a book by Professor Mahadevan, my colleague at IIM Bangalore, and two other co-authors of his. Vinayak Rajat Bhatt and Nagendra Pavana RN. And this book is all about the Indian knowledge system. It looks at a very rigorous analysis of what are our contributions to knowledge globally in the past when we were certainly pioneers in various fields. So you can see the kind of fields which are covered here. It's about linguistics, the number system, astronomy, engineering and technology. There's also about health and medicine and so on. So I would strongly urge you all to read this book, if only to find an authentic account of what are the areas in which we have contributed in the past. But we don't have to get confidence and inspiration only from books. We can also get it from people. So I would strongly urge all of you to find good role models who can be a beacon or who can be sort of lamppost for all of you in showing you the way forward. I'm sure you know this gentleman. He's very well known. He's Sundar Pichai. He's today the CEO of Alphabet, the parent company of Google. And you would all know that he's just like all of us. He studied, I mean, I saw your names popping up on the screen. Many of you are in IITs and NITs and top engineering institutions. So you can look at Sundar Pichai. I mean, he studied in a school in Chennai, different schools in Chennai. Then he went to Kharagpur. He didn't actually do computer science, interestingly enough. He did metallurgical engineering. Then he went on to do a master's at Stanford and finally an MBA at Wharton. And you know where he's ended up today. So in this context, again, I want to add a couple of words of advice. While doing academically is important, remember that you shouldn't burn yourself out at this stage itself. Building your career is more like a marathon. It's not just a 100-meter sprint. In fact, many professors today at our top institutions complain that by the time students reach their classes, they're already all spent. They're completely lack in energy or enthusiasm. So there's really no point in getting burnt out early. And I particularly speaking here to those of you who are in the early stages of your engineering or medicine or other careers. Just remember that you have to play a long distance game, not a short distance game. In fact, it's important that you don't also think that you have peaked too early. In fact, many times the top rankers at IITs and IIMs and so on tend to feel they've already achieved their life's ambition simply by doing so well in the entrance exam, and they don't stretch themselves adequately after that. But it doesn't matter even if you're not in an IIT or NIT. I'm sure you recognize Satya Nadella. He didn't study at our top public institutions, but he studied at an important private institution, the Manipal Institute of Technology. And in fact, these days, it often appears to me that it's the graduates from our two second-tier institutions who have much more drive, much more energy, much more enthusiasm. They seem to have a fire in the belly that sometimes the students in our top institutions lack. So just watch out, those of you who are in top institutions. You might actually find all your friends from so-called tier 2 and tier 3 institutions overtaking you as you go through your careers. Of course, engineering is not the only route to success. Economists and social scientists are also the fount of new ideas. They have a large influence on society. So I know all of you are qualifying for engineering and medicine and so on. But I would urge you also to take your social science courses seriously. They're very important in order to have a holistic perspective. And who knows, one day you might also want to pursue those as your subject. Look at this gentleman, Arvind Subramanian. He is the former chief economic advisor. He did his BA honors in economics at St. Stephen's College, did his MBA at IIM Ahmedabad, then went on to do his PhD at Oxford. And he's an extremely articulate and erudite analyst of the economy and, of course, played an important role in India as well. We also have people like our finance minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, who again did her BA in economics from Trichy, from Sita Lakshmi Ramaswamy College, went on to do an MA at JNU. She started doing her PhD, but I think she didn't complete. But then finally, she went on to become a consultant with PwC. And you can see how she has really managed to grow from there today to become the Minister of Finance, one of the most important portfolios in the Union Council of Ministers. So here's another friend of mine, or junior from my school, who has again gone on to be a very significant and influential professor in the field of international trade. And he has written a very impactful book on the future of money, which made waves a couple of years ago. So never look down upon people who have pursued other disciplines. Some of you might know Kiran Majumdar-Shaw. She is the founder and chairman of the leading biotech company in India, Biocon. Interestingly enough, she didn't do engineering. She was formally trained as a brewmaster, the person who sort of tweaks and optimizes the process in a brewery. But her understanding of the brewery process finally enabled her to go into the enzymes business. And today, of course, you know that Biocon is a pharmaceutical giant. And of course, you have people who go on to become chief financial officers, like another friend of mine, Giridhar, who was my school classmate, but today he is the chief financial officer of Indian Hotels Company. So the reason I'm just sharing some of these profiles with you is only to say that, all of us started in the same school system as all of you. We went to the same institutions as all of you, the good institutions of India, but you need to have the right role models who can take you forward and who can inspire you to do even better as you go ahead in life. Also remember that what you do first matters, but it's not going to completely determine the trajectory of your future. Sometimes I find students getting worried that, they're not getting the first dream job of their choice. Don't worry. In fact, it's not only about getting the first dream job. Sometimes I even find that, people who are not necessarily the toppers in college also do extremely well. I'm not advocating that you don't study. What I'm trying to say is that you need to be a good all-rounder with multiple skills, and you need to be able to build on these skills as you go forward. And remember, if you have other career interests, there may be opportunities for you to try those other career tracks as well. Like Rajiv Menon, who's an ace cinematographer and director. And, he could have as well been an engineer, doctor, or a lawyer, but he chose to pursue cinematography. So offbeat careers can and do work, but you should probably pursue them only if you're really good at that, only if you have a very strong passion, only if you're quite confident that you can make that work. So I would exercise a little caution if I were you, but if you really have strong interest or passion in some other area, by all means, please do consider pursuing that. And India has a lot of other opportunities as well. You think of this lady, Rashmi Bansal, some of you might have heard of her. She did her bachelor's in Bombay University, then did her MBA at IIM Ahmedabad. And she is the author of several best-selling books, most of which are related to entrepreneurship and business. So this is my fourth book recommendation to you. Particularly if you're interested in entrepreneurship, do read Rashmi's book called Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish. It's a really inspiring book on several entrepreneurs who have been successful in India. But as you can see from the titles here, she has many other books as well. Each of them is on a slightly different theme, but related to achievement, related to advancement, related to growth. So those of you who are interested, I would strongly encourage you to read one of Rashmi's books. We can also take inspiration from people who have gone on very different paths. I'd like you to meet Vineet Saraiwala. Vineet was our student here at IIM Bangalore some years ago. He is a person with disability, and he, of course, has faced challenges in pursuing his studies and his jobs, but that's never stopped him from really making significant contributions anywhere he has gone. In fact, after he graduated from IIM Bangalore, he worked with the Future Group, and he took his passion right into Future Group. In fact, he convinced Mr. Kishore Biani, the chairman of the Future Group, that they should make Big Bazaar stores disabled friendly. And that's exactly what he proceeded to do. And in fact, he did a really wonderful job during his tenure at the Future Group in making the Big Bazaar stores much easier to use for people with disability. But he didn't stop there. Once he moved on from the Future Group, he decided he wanted to play an even bigger role in helping persons with disability. Today, he runs an online platform which creates a network for people with disability. He connects people to artists who have disabilities so that you can access those artists, you can hire them, you can get them for a performance. And he is building a comprehensive platform to connect people with disability to the wider community. So I've tried out his platform. In fact, this shows a couple of paintings I bought on his platform. And you can see they're both beautiful. And this is the kind of opportunity that Vineet is enabling for persons with disability who sign up for this platform. So I'm coming towards the end of my talk, just trying to focus a little bit on how you should go about making career choices. If you want to play really safe, you want to be at the center of this Venn diagram. You probably want to be in an area which the world needs. In other words, there's demand for your talent. Secondly, something for which the world is willing to pay so that you are reasonably well remunerated. But I would imagine it also helps if there's a third thing, if you are good at whatever you are doing. And finally, of course, it's wonderful if you actually love what you're doing. Then that passion and mission can get really poured into the focus area that you have chosen. So you might like to think of all four of these. Is there demand for the skill you have? Are people willing to pay for it? Is it something you're really good at? And is it something you love? Of course, even if you don't have all four, you can see there are other possible combinations which might work. They're not perfect, but they might still be good enough for you. So just remember, these are four questions you need to keep asking as you make choices for your career. However, I would also leave you with another thought, and that thought is that in India today, there are so many opportunities. You just look at every sector, there's so many new things happening. And there's a huge demand for people in almost every vocation that you could imagine. So my sort of final recommendation to all of you is that whatever choice you make, there are a few things you need to do. You should strive for being the best in whatever you do. That will ensure that you're never without a job or never without something to do. Try to be the best in whatever you do. I think that's extremely important. Adopt a philosophy of continuous improvement. Never be happy or satisfied with what you have achieved today. Keep looking at how you can enhance and sharpen your skills and performance. And finally, if you can follow what is called deliberate practice, that might be very helpful. So there's one body of research which suggests if you want to be an expert in any area, you need to have something like 10,000 hours of practice. Of course, it's not just any old practice. It's not just doing the same old thing, but it's identifying where are the gaps in your skills and then working hard to repair those gaps. So you need to have your own personal plan for deliberate practice, which will help you figure out, where the gaps are and have a very systematic plan in how you will address those gaps. So these are a few very critical things that I would recommend to all of you. Let me also leave you with a fifth book idea. And to me, this is very important. As Sudha mentioned in her opening talk, we are very keen to have more women among our participants. So our current national 20% is not good enough. And what's important is also for our women, as well as everyone else who is supporting the women, to be very clear about how women's careers can be furthered. We all know that there are lots of barriers to women pursuing their dreams. There are many conscious and unconscious mindsets that you face at home and in the workplace, which hold women back. And there's this very interesting book written by Anita Bogle. You probably know her husband better, Harsha Bogle, who's a cricket commentator. Anita Bogle is also an MBA graduate from IIM Ahmedabad, and she recently wrote this book called Equal Yet Different, all about how women can and should go about developing their career. And I think it's equally important for men to read this book because a lot of the barriers which women face are due to men. So I would again urge all the men scholars or the male scholars who are part of FFE, do read this book to see how you can help your sisters, your spouses, when you have them in the future, and everybody else in your family, the women, how can you help them advance their careers and interests? And I think this is a very important perspective that all of us need to be conscious of. As Anita says, we live in a time of great opportunity. It would be foolish to waste it, but it's also a world where opportunity is not fairly and evenly distributed. So we need to see how best we can help women exercise their potential. And that's what this book is all about. And you might have heard this well-known comment by Mao Zedong, which said, women hold up half the sky. So we had better make sure that we provide a good playing field for women as well. So with that, I'm going to sort of close my talk right now. Essentially, I just wanted to give you some ideas on how you can think about your careers. I would just summarize by saying that by all means, please pursue your interests. Pay back FFE for the scholarship we have given you, but also pay back your family and everyone else who must have sacrificed a lot to help you get to where you have today. And my only final comment would be, please do actively participate as an FFE alum once you have completed your academic program. Please do give back to FFE when you can. Please remember your pledge to help to others during your lifetime. All of these are critical for FFE to continue to achieve its mission, and which is to help folks like you really achieve your dreams. So wonderful once again to meet you. Let me wish you all the best. And I really hope you will use the support provided by FFE to fly and do extremely well in your careers. So thanks a lot.